This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. Thank you for coming back again this week to watch another episode. This is episode number 622. Golly, we've been doing this for quite some time. We've been having just a whole heck of a lot of fun here, and we have enjoyed providing these videos to you when we can. We're not able to do this every week because not every one of these recordings is, rather, each of these episodes are recorded on video. Most of them are recorded on audio, and some upcoming weeks we're going to be at Magic conventions where we'll be presenting daily updates, and there again, those will be audio rather than video updates, so we won't be able to post anything that will be interactive kind of things where you'll see us, but still be posting these on YouTube so that you can listen to them on YouTube. Plus, you can listen to these podcasts wherever you download your podcasts. And I also suggest that you will, please, you can help us out a lot if you will just give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's going to be on Apple, iTunes, or whether it's going to be on Android, through Google Play, through Stitcher, iHeartRadio, so many different platforms where I'm sure there are opportunities for you to leave some nice comments, so we'd really appreciate that if you could. Also, we are getting very close to the 1,000 mark right now as we say this episode number 622 for getting to 1,000 on YouTube as far as subscribers go. So it really would help if you can just hit that subscribe button over here on YouTube to help us get to that 1,000 mark. And the 1,000 is important only because we can finally start to maybe monetize some of these videos, and maybe I can make a few bucks. Or if you have the financial ability to do this, please go to the magicwordpodcast.com, and there you can click on a link that will say become a friend of the Magic Word. It gives you some information about how that you can financially support us through a donation or through regular monthly pledges. For no more than just a cup of a coffee, for no more than just the cost of a cup of coffee per month, or a nice single malt scotch if you're so inclined, you can donate to the and pledge to the Magic Word Podcast, and by your pledging to us, you'll get some pretty cool perks along the way then too. Well, this week we're going to be going to New York City, where we're going to be visiting with a fellow who is one of the co-producers of Monday Night Magic, and he has a lot of great information about how not only Monday Night Magic came into being in New York City, but also some of the other magic venues that have been in New York over the years. There was something, by the way, mentioned in this podcast in which we referred to, I believe, the Titanic sinking, and the year actually was 1912. I was uncertain as to the time whenever we were discussing that, but I've gone back, checked it out. It was 1912. It'll come to play later. You'll get what I'm talking about in that reference. Anyhow, please enjoy us this week. I know you will. You'll get a lot of fun out of this and some education then as well as we listen to my friend this week, Mr. Michael Chaut, here on The Magic Word. Today I have with me a friend all the way from New York City, someone who has been a longtime friend, someone I always enjoy getting a chance to visit with whenever I get out to the East Coast, or occasionally whenever I get to some of the major conventions. I mean, major like visit or something. It seems like he's always a very busy guy, and so whenever I go to visit him, he's got his own personal assistant that's working in the other room, and he's got 2 phones on, and when we're in the car, he's still always talking to somebody. This guy is one of the hardest working men in show business, I tell you. He is absolutely amazing, and someone who knows everybody, that keeps things going, because he's the one who I think really does the magic behind the Monday Night Magic. There are several other producers, but he is one of them. Please welcome my good friend, Mr. Michael Chaut from New York City. Hey there, Michael.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Scott.
Good to have you here, man. So I have so many questions, and just kind of talking about some general things. You are in New York City, and New York really has always been kind of a hotbed of magic, as far as where it used to be years ago that they had the New York Townhouse, wasn't it, or Magic Townhouse, I think.
Yep, I was there, and so was Peter.
Peter Samuelson, yes, who was one of the other producers with you. Right. And Peter's been on one of the other episodes then as well. Tell me about kind of, I guess, that story about how, were you working with, was that,
Dick Brooks and Dorothy Dietrich.
Oh, okay. They were the ones who ran the townhouse.
They owned
I was
it.
thinking, I'm sorry, I was thinking of the other one with the guy who was the
Talking about Imam?
imam. Thank you.
So Imam had been at the Magic Townhouse and then left and went to Mostly Magic. And so, but the first magic scene for performing that I can remember in my lifetime was the Magic Townhouse. And that, I mean, so Dick and Dorothy now have the Houdini Museum in Scranton, and they come into New York every now and then, and they're like proud grandparents because, Peter was one of the first there with them, and then I was, and they really, if it wasn't for them, I don't know that Monday Night Magic would be alive today. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking when I was 19 years old. They let me perform the Townhouse.
On stage or close up, or did they do a little bit of both?
Well, it was a mixture, actually.
Okay.
It was formal close up at a half moon table, similar to what you would experience at the parlor in the Magic Castle.
Okay.
Believe it or not, they set, I think the parlor only seats 26, if I'm correct, and it's 20 something, and the Townhouse would seat about 30. And the way they did it is that a half moon table, the performer was on the straight side of the table, and it was probably 8 foot or 10 foot. So they had 4 or 6 people seated at the table, and then they had 8 or 9 people behind them on on stools, regular bar stools, and then they had 10 or 20 on higher stools behind them.
Wow.
All in the amphitheater way, and then they would probably let people stand behind that. And on a sold out night, you could probably have 30 people there. You'd have to ask Dick and Dorothy, but and they would be able to give you more detail. We actually did a Zoom with Hank Feinberg from Florida.
Florida, sure.
We did a Zoom recanting the magic of New York, and it really turned out to be a love fest for Dick and Dorothy. And there were so many people that were there that got their start at the Magic Townhouse. It was pretty remarkable. Eric DeCamps and Mayor Yedid and Peter Kagasian started there, and the list goes on and on and on. So
I know Hank Feinberg, but I didn't know he was involved with the Magic Townhouse.
He was not. He does these Sunday night themed Zoom shows for their local SAM club, I believe.
Oh, I see.
So during last year, 2020, we were invited for a Zoom session with his local group, and a lot of the old timers tuned in, and it was really a lot of fun. And we all talked about the old days, and Dick and Dorothy talked about what it took to keep a place. My recollection was that they were at 61st and 3rd Avenue. That's where they were, 61st and 3rd. Now imagine the real estate and what it cost. And they had a townhouse. And it was
it was literally a townhouse. It wasn't just the name of the place.
It literally was. You walked up the stairs. The first floor was the magic shop. And that was the overflow floor for the upstairs. The second floor was the main Magic Townhouse where I performed most of the time. I think I did perform on the lower floor once on a sold out night. And I believe the top floor, I believe that's where they lived.
So they resided there as well as running the whole place, the magic shop.
So I was never allowed in the residence, so.
Wow, I did not know actually the town. I just thought it was kind of like, Townhouse Cookie or Crackers or something, just a name.
But it was a thing. I think Jack London brought me there. Do you know that name, Jack London?
The writer? No. No.
Jack London was a New York mentalist who had a really big following. He was very much of a character. he had a heart attack, and his doctor told him no cigars and no booze, and after I saw him, he was smoking a cigar, and I said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Didn't your doctor tell you no cigars and no booze?" And he said, "Yeah, that's no fun." And he goes, and then he said, I'm gonna get my revenge on my wife, and I'm gonna die first," and he did.
How old was he at the time?
I was
60s, 70s?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I was 20, and when you're 20, you have no. When I was 20, 60. Hello.
Yeah.
60 was dead.
Yeah, you look at somebody like us, we're like over the hill.
Exactly. So.
Well, that's interesting. So again, they had the townhouse then, and that property has skyrocketed. I guess the neighborhood is just.
They ended up closing because the landlord tripled the rent. The rent went from $10,000 a month to $30,000 a month, and they said bye.
Yeah. So there was nothing that was grandfathered. I thought that was something in New York that they did, where
it allowed you were allowed to do that, but only you had a lease, and as long as you were in the period of the lease, they couldn't raise the rent. But when the lease was up, they could do whatever they wanted.
Oh, I see. So, yeah, if you had like a 100-year lease or something, or whatever the lease period was. Yeah.
Well, when I was just talking yesterday with a friend, one of my favorite. Did I ever take you to Doha when you were in New York?
No.
Oh, you missed out, man. Doha is this is a funny story. I was performing at an event, and they said, "Oh, we're all going out now. Would you like to come join us for dinner?" And I said, "Where are you going?" And they said, "Doha." And I said, "What's that?" And they said, "It's Korean barbecue." Now, you're from Texas, so you're going to laugh. I don't like barbecue. I like barbecues, but I don't like barbecue sauce.
So yeah, a little spicy for your stomach. I know
Exactly.
I know. We've broken bread many times.
So, good friend. There you go.
Yeah.
So I said, "Oh, I can't eat barbecue." Yeah. And they go, "Just come." My friend said, "Just come." And I went, and it was a big table with a round cooking area in the center, and the barbecue part was they gave you meat that was marinated, and you would put it on the barbecue and make it, and everyone would eat it. And then you, instead of bread, because probably I don't know about Todd Robbins' line alert. If you're like me, and I know I am, bread is my friend. Yeah. So instead of bread, they gave you these big sheets of lettuce, and it was remarkable. So that you would wrap the meat, the cooked meat, in the lettuce and eat it. Huh. And it was so good. And anyone that I brought there loved it. And by the way, the most unique thing, this is so funny, the most unique thing about Doha is that it was in the same place that Mostly Magic was.
Oh.
And when Mostly Magic closed at 55 Carmine Street, Doha moved in.
Wow.
So I would tell people, so we would go there, and it would be a Magic Who's Who night, because I'd say, well, there was the stage, and there was the bar, and this is where it was because they had two different setups for it in the early days. It was an amphitheater, and then they ripped it all out and they made it into a restaurant, sort of dinner theater. And but anyway, it was so good, and owned by Quentin Tarantino. Now you would think.
No way.
Yep. And you would think that he'd had deep pockets, and they, at the end of their 10 or 15-year lease or whatever it was, the landlord raised the rent, and it closed.
Just like that also. Huh.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how deep your pockets are. I mean, if it's not really viable, I mean, at some point, he's going to have to cut his losses, Just business.
Yeah, just business, yep.
So what's there now?
No idea.
Okay, you haven't been back there since it closed.
I have not been back since it closed.
So you're talking about that was Mostly Magic where Imam was. Is that right?
Imam, yeah.
Okay, and that was going simultaneous with the Magic Townhouse.
Yeah. So the scoop is, by the way, there's no better flattery than people who copy you. And the scoop was that Imam left. There are actually a couple of people that left the Magic Townhouse and started their own thing. Marvin Baccarat started, and don't ask me to spell that because I have no idea. But he was a guy who worked in the garment center and was a, as I was a kid, he was a good mentalist, and in fact, he influenced me in my style a little bit, and he opened up a place called Chamber Magic. Now,
Okay.
go figure. You'd think
It's got a ring to it.
Yeah, Steve Cohen, hello, Mr. Subliminal.
Yeah.
I was like, you're calling your show Chamber Magic, but maybe he was too young and never heard of it. And
Wow.
by then, all of the brochures were printed.
And so, yeah,
So Chamber Magic first, then because Imam, by the way, was an engineer by day and a provocateur at night, and so he got the space and then built it by hand.
Wow.
Similar, have you been to Danny Archer's place, Smoke and Mirrors?
I've only seen the videos of it, but I've not personally visited.
Well, I've never been there either, but from my understanding, it was similar. Danny, I know, got in there with a hammer and a nail and built it inch by inch, and Imam did the same with his place. And then at some point later on, they ripped it all out, and they thought they could figure out a way to get more people in and use it for eating purposes as well. So they had a full kitchen and all that.
That's what I seem to recall, was they did have a kitchen and everything, and doing close-up. As I recall, too, Eric DeCamps had worked there, was that right? And they had a stage as well as close-up.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're talking about at
Mostly Magic.
Mostly Magic. No.
Just close-up.
Originally, they had a table with an amphitheater. And when I say an amphitheater, it was 270 degrees.
Okay.
With bleachers sort of seating, and it was all risers up and one table. And that was close up at the table. And
Gotcha.
then the next rendition was, for all intents and purposes, stage / parlor, because it was stage, but it was more, you couldn't, you're on an 8x8 space or 10x10 space, so there was no big illusions.
No wings or anything, obviously.
No, nothing. You walked up the stairs, out the door from the basement, which was the green room. We all got ready downstairs in the basement, and you're on the stage right there. To the best of my recollection, it was a long time ago. And I saw Williamson perform there, and they had all great performers. I at the time was a semi-pro, and I had Thursday nights.
Yeah, I'm interested in kind of knowing the history of some of the magic in New York, so I was kind of asking about the detail on that. And again, the Dick and Dorothy were at the Magic Townhouse. And then they went to Scranton from there, or was there someplace before or after? What was the?
Correct. I believe from there they went to Scranton.
Okay.
And quite frankly, they were off my radar for many, many years until I think Monday Night Magic. So, they were probably still at the Townhouse till about 83 or so. But you'd have to check the dates.
Yeah.
And then we started Monday Night Magic in 97. And Mostly Magic lasted till 93, I think, or 94.
Okay. I have talked with Dick and Dorothy for an episode a while back when they were putting out their, or actually still working on raising money for their Houdiniopoly board game and everything. And so we did talk a little bit about this, but it's been a few years back, and so some of that has escaped me. I'm going to have to go back and listen to my own episode there sometime too. But kind of bringing that forward,
How many episodes has it been, Scott?
well over 600. We're getting close to about 650 here shortly. I plan on going to 5 more conventions between now and the end of the year, so everyone will be hearing some convention updates or convention reports and updates from different places where I'm going to be attending. But surprisingly, again, I would think, whereas Chicago, for an example, has always had a lot of magic clubs, the New York Lounge, or Pickle Barrel, and it goes on and on. Currently, of course, the Chicago Magic Lounge, as well as some magicians who are working different restaurants. Are there a lot of guys who are working and gals working in restaurants in New York now, or some to your knowledge, or many, or any?
it's an interesting question. There used to be some. I mean, Bobby Baxter, who performed at the Magic Townhouse and also performed at Mostly Magic, and also performed at Monday Night Magic, always, worked in restaurants. I do not know of any. The last restaurant where the guys were working was Ninja, and Ninja closed. Did you know about Ninja?
Nope. No.
So Ninja, the theme was that everyone was a Japanese ninja, and they were
You mean the servers? And
yes, the employees.
okay.
And everyone dressed looking like a Japanese ninja. And
Wow.
then they for whatever reason, the owner liked magic. I never worked there, and I'd never been. It was one of those places I was going to go, but it was a kitschy place, and they would get a lot of celebrities. In fact, one of our guys, I believe, either Ben Nemser or Mike Patrick, worked for Will Smith's son's birthday party.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so celebrities would come to New York and throw their special events at Ninja.
Yeah.
And the guys would work there, and they did very well. And they had a good complement, about 10 performers. And then, of course, there's Speakeasy Magic, which is not per se what you're talking about, but it's sort of the next level. Speakeasy Magic, which was created by Todd Robbins and I believe Danny Doyle, is in a bar, and the bar was basically dead, at different times in the evening. And what they did was they put in 10 tables, or say 11 tables. Each table seats 11 people. There are 10 guests seated at each table. Again, I've never been. This is only hearsay. 10 guests sit at each table, and one of those spots at each table is open for a magician. And the magicians stroll from table to table to table. And so throughout the evening, you might see 5 magicians. There's no food served. It's only alcohol. And, it runs from like 8 to 10 p.m.
And so people can kind of come and go and have a drink? Oh, you're there for the 2 hours?
Yeah, people came. Maybe it was an hour and a half. I don't know the specifics because I haven't been, but everyone sort of loved it. Todd had a very eclectic, unique lineup of performers, and all different styles. And then they would have, on top of the magic at the table, I believe there were 2 things that happened on a parlor platform as well.
I remember Todd had something else I thought that ran for a while that I tried to get in whenever I was out visiting you last time. Last time I was out there was to see the Darren Brown show when he was on Broadway. And I was there for a few nights, and you said, hey, I'll try to get you in Todd's show. But it was like...
That was Speakeasy Magic.
That was a Speakeasy Magic. Okay. It was slammed, like packed. No way.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a remarkable formula. And the crazy thing is, so they were spending on magic over $1 million a year.
Holy cow.
At that venue. Think about it. They were hiring 10 performers a night.
7 nights a week?
No, it was only 4 nights. So it was Thursday, Friday, and either 1 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, or 2 on Saturday.
And the tickets were sold online, as I recall, too.
Yeah.
That was a way that you can get in. And it was just a 1 seating, or did they have a couple of seatings?
1 seating.
Okay.
I think on Saturday, maybe they had 2 on Saturday. Maybe they had an 8 and an 11 or something like that.
So, yeah, that was successful. Do you think that's something that could be replicated in other larger cities? I'm talking about L.A., Chicago, Houston, Denver.
It could, but the secret to that, first of all, they were, charging over $100 a ticket, I think, to get in.
Yeah.
It has to be a city that has, an affluent crowd. And you have to have good magicians. So, and then I think the key was that the producers of the show were the same producers who produced a hit off-Broadway show called Sleep No More. And the smartest thing they did was collect every name and email address of everyone to sleep. So their marketing machine was remarkable.
So they already had a built-in audience, basically, and said, hey, if you like that, you'll like this, and come and bring your friends, and they kept coming back, and so, So how long did that run? 2 years?
Yeah, and it will be starting up again soon.
Okay, that sounds great. And again, that's called what?
Speakeasy Magic.
Speakeasy Magic. That was it. And now, again, I know Todd Robbins has been involved with you from the beginning as far as the Monday Night Magic, and I really want to talk about the genesis of that, because the idea, or the name, I guess, started in England. And how did that evolve? Or
I'll tell you the story.
Okay.
So Monday Night Magic started the first time in a restaurant on the Upper West Side.
Mm-hmm.
And I was invited. I had some friends who were opening up a restaurant called Holy Cow. It was a steak place, and it was way ahead of its time because it was before steak places. Probably you have a lot of steak places in Texas, but it wasn't a thing in New York. And before steak restaurants became a thing, they opened. This was 1996.
Okay.
And they opened up this place called Holy Cow, and they invited me to be the magic element of the restaurant. And they wanted strolling magicians in the restaurant, and they wanted to produce a show one night a week. And so I have the big meeting with the general partner to discuss what night are we going to do this magic show. And they had this beautiful event space below the restaurant. So I wanted Saturday, but I knew he was definitely not going to give me Saturday. Their idea was, by the way, that they would get promoters to promote in New York. Promoting is a thing. I don't know if it is in Houston, but the people that promote dance clubs and bar scenes, and people would go and they would spend money on the alcohol and they would dance, etc. And they would pay the promoters to bring in the audience. And they still do this today in New York, in places like, some of the big fancy dinner and dancing places in the city. Promoters still exist, but promoters have been around since I was 20. I mean, it's remarkable that business has stayed as it is.
They're just able to bring in clients or customers, basically, to your place.
Right, and they would hand out postcards, $5 off with this postcard. People would show up. So instead of paying $20 to get in, you'd pay $15.
Yeah.
But the promoter would probably get 10 of that 15. And promoters made a lot of money. So their idea was to have a promoter promote the event space downstairs as a club space.
Okay.
And wanted one night a week to do magic. And so I wanted Saturday. I knew he wasn't giving me Saturday. So I thought I'd ask for Saturday and I'd settle on Thursday. Because I don't know how it is in Houston, but in New York, Thursday was the party night. That's when everyone wanted to go out.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I go, what about Saturday? He goes, no way. And then I said, how about Friday? He goes, you're dreaming. And then he said, look, you want the room for free or not? Well, of course it's got to be free.
Yeah.
The idea was that we would keep the gate and they would pick up the dinner, the food and bar.
The drinks, right.
And I said, yeah, I want the room for free. And he said, you can have it on Monday or Wednesday. Because he's thinking those are the slowest 2 nights in a restaurant.
Sure.
A week for a restaurant. And I said, Monday. Yeah, Broadway's closed on Monday. We should do it on Monday. And then he said, and the gentleman's name was Steve Ornstein. And Steve Ornstein was by the way, Holy Cow, all of that was a joke based on Phil Rizzuto's famous line, holy cow, it's a home run. And it was a sports.
He was the announcer for the Yankees, right?
Correct. And the theme of Holy Cow was sports. So the partners were Brian Leach from the Rangers, Pat Kelly from the Yankees, Howard Cross from the Giants. The list went on and on.
Okay.
So I got to meet all these guys, which was fun.
Yeah.
And I have great stories of performing for Brian Leach and Pat Kelly and Howard Cross. Howard Cross, I called him Howie. And he said, "My name is Howard." And he had a hand that could go literally around my neck. Like, sorry, Mr. Howard.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
So you said Monday.
so I said, oh, so by the way, so Steve Ornstein had a TV show on Fox called Sports Extra, and his persona on TV was Orrin Stevens, which is funny. Steve Ornstein, Orrin Stevens.
Oh, that's funny.
And by the way, he was in the movie Downhill Racer with Robert Redford.
Robert Red sure do. Remember that?
But in any case, so Steve Ornstein said, "Yeah, Monday, you could call it Monday Night Magic." And I went, "That's a great name." And we did. And we ran the show for 4 months. And we were the only thing in the restaurant that actually made money because we had no costs. And so we didn't lose a thing. And by the way, there's still people like Mayor Yedid, who you know, still will talk about that we never paid the performers a fee, which is not true. We did towards the, once we got established. But in the beginning, they got free dinner, and they all loved the dinner because, you could have a filet mignon for dinner, whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
So it was great. And it was a really fun thing. And that's where the tradition of, by the way, going to dinner after the show started.
Oh.
Finished.
Yeah.
Which we've kept now 26 years later.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's always a good way to wind down. It's one of my favorite parts of being there is to go out with everybody afterwards and just kind of unwind and tell stories until the wee hours.
Yeah. So anyway, and by the way, any of you who are listening, it's not a closed thing. If you come to Monday Night Magic and you want to join us for dinner, just ask anyone. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Don't be polite.
Yeah, you don't have to be working there.
Yeah, just say, "Where's the dinner? I want to come."
Yeah.
That's the spirit of the dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so we called it Monday Night Magic. Back to your original question. So now the restaurant closes after 4 months, unfortunately, and we're dark. Mayor Yedid goes to London 3 months later, comes back, calls me and says, "Michael, I just got back from London." I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I performed at Monday Night Magic." And I said, "You're kidding. They stole our name." And he said, "Michael, they've been running for 3.5 years." I said, "You're kidding. I stole their name." So he said, they run their show in a theater because the theater's dark on Monday, and you should do the same thing.
Makes perfect sense.
You'll never get cut out of the venue because it's always an open night, and the venues stay around forever. And I said the same thing. Yeah, that makes sense, but I could never afford a theater. And anyway, make a long story short, too late. About a year later, I got it in my little head that I wanted to start it up again, and I did it as a one-night thing at a very magical theater called the Sullivan Street Playhouse, and it people really liked what we did. Now, the key, of course, is the name. So before we started, I knew that people knew that I knew that we had stolen the name.
Okay.
So I couldn't just Monday Night Magic. It would come back and haunt me. When I didn't know, fine. And I didn't know. I didn't know. But when I did know, and there were people that knew that I knew, so I wrote a letter to John Lenahan, who I actually spoke to today via email. Actually, it was funny. I said, "Mayor, how did you find out about Monday Night Magic?" And he said he read an article about it in Magic Magazine. So I called Stan Allen, and I said, "You wrote an article on Monday Night Magic in London." He said, "Yes, I did." I said, "Can you put me in touch with the owners?" And he said, "Sure." And he gave me the email address. Now, here's a little trivia for you. Sad, but so do you know, so John Lenahan was one of the founders. Do you know the other founder of Monday Night Magic was?
I do not.
Anthony Owen.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's sad.
It is sad. He was such a great guy, and he's
very smart fellow.
Yeah, really smart and always there for you. And John and I just spoke about him yesterday. We we've been on calls working on something right now, so we've been talking the last 2 days.
I
But
had him on an episode just about a month before he passed.
wow,
I mean, sounded fine to me. I mean,
not John Lennon. Talking about Anthony Owen, by the way. Yeah, so I don't want people to think that John Lennon is gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, Anthony was such a great guy. Anthony, this is a true story. Anthony calls and contacts me and says, I'm coming to New York and I want to perform at Moonlight Magic. Great, we'd love to have you. And he said, can I stay at your house? And I said, sure. Now, Scott, you've been to my house and you know the mess of my house. So Anthony Owen is going to come to the house. So I said to him, you can sleep on the couch. I'll sleep in the bedroom, no problem. Having forgotten that I double booked, and I told a former girlfriend of mine who was going to be visiting New York that she could visit and stay at my apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And if she had stayed, I would have slept in the bedroom and she would have slept on the couch, no problem. Yeah. But now that Anthony's supposed to be on the couch, where's she going to sleep? So she says, I'm not sleeping in the living room with a man I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm taking the bedroom. So now I tell Anthony, who's, by the way, 20, so when we started Monday Night Magic, I was in probably 38. So
what year was that again?
97.
Okay.
Thereabouts. 38. Yeah, I'm 62 now, so maybe I was 37. But in any case, Anthony, I said to Anthony, who was 21 at the time, I said, I got a little bit of bad news for you. She's sleeping in the bedroom, I'm sleeping on the couch, and you're on the floor. And I gave him a sleeping bag. And Anthony, the creator of Darren Brown and all of those great mats, this is why he never invited me anywhere. No, I made him sleep on the floor in my apartment.
Wow. And so he performed. He just was over in New York for another thing, apparently, and said, well, I'm there, can I work? Yeah.
He did, and he worked great. But back to the deal. So I call
John McClanahan.
No, I call Stan Allen.
Oh.
And I get the information for John Lenahan and Anthony Owen, who I didn't know either of them. And I write them an email. Because in those days, there was no Skype. There was no internet. This is 1997. It seems like there would be, but there wasn't. And calling England was very expensive. It was something you didn't do. Oh, you had email. So I wrote an email to Lenahan and I explained the whole story. I didn't want them to think I was a thief.
Yeah.
So I sent them this long email with the whole story of how it all happened and it was an honest mistake. And I wanted to beg forgiveness. And Lenahan writes back, no problem, completely fine. And then I write back saying, well, we want to start up the show again. And he said, no problem. Anthony, they pronounced it Anthony, but I always was Anthony. But so he says, Anthony and I love the idea of a New York franchise. This is honest to God email going back and forth. And I'm like, uh-oh. What you talking about, Willis?
Yeah, franchise. Yeah, what you talking about, Willis?
And I wrote back, what's the franchise fee? And I waited and I waited and I waited. And the email finally came in. And the franchise fee for Monday Night Magic was $1 per show to be paid in beer when they came to New York.
Cool. So have you been over to London in the meantime to see their venue?
I have never been to the venue. I've been to London.
Right.
I think the only time I was in London since Monday Night Magic existed was for the centenary. And I don't think
that was a fantastic convention.
It was great, but I don't think that by then Monday Night Magic had sort of stopped, and it was only going on twice a year, and it wasn't going on, so we didn't go to the venue.
And so it's dead now, is that correct?
No, he still does it twice a year.
Oh, just twice a year, not every week. Okay.
No, he still does it twice a year, and I think he's doing something coming up soon again.
They should change the name to Solstice Night Magic, and so they do it on the winter solstice and the summer solstice, and they're good.
No kidding, because he only does it at Christmas time. So,
wow. That's amazing. I remember the Sullivan Street Theater because the cool thing about that is that's where the Fantastics had played for the longest run ever.
Off-Broadway show ever, 43 years.
Yeah.
And we are now the longest running off-Broadway magic show, running 25 years.
And you have had how many different venues?
9.
Well, I was just going to say 4. 9. I didn't know you had that many. Okay. Because you were there at Sullivan for probably, what, 10 years?
No, we were at
7 years?
Nope, for 4.
Oh, wow.
The building got closed. We 4 or 5. And we were in one theater twice. So 9 is really only 8 physical spaces, but we were, if you count, we left
9 times.
Back,
Yeah. And was it bounced all around town? And as a result, did you notice any slippage as far as attendance goes?
Yeah, the place for the show is the Village.
That's the best place.
Yeah, we had the best turnout. We find that people, when they come to see magic, they want to go out and have dinner and carouse around the Village. And the Village is such a fun, happening place. And then they come to see the show. And then maybe afterwards they go out for drinks with their friends. Well,
the Village is really cool. And it seems like, isn't it near the Blue Note? You're like about a block away from the Blue Note Jazz Cafe and other kinds of popular places.
And Cafe was literally in the same building as us.
Uh-huh.
Another prestigious, long-standing place in Greenwich Village. And there's so many iconic places that still exist. And then there are so many that are gone, CBGB's is gone. But
CBGB's been gone for a long time. I remember Penn Gillette always talking about that place. It was kind of like where punk on the East Coast began.
It's hard to believe that Penn and Teller were fixtures in New York for many years. I mean, and by the way, they used to have a Friday night after their show. They would have movie night, and they would all meet at midnight, and they'd go to a movie on 42nd Street.
Huh.
All of their friends, and then after the movie, they'd go and discuss it at Howard Johnson's, or maybe they met in Howard Johnson's first. But either way, it involved a meal and the movie and all that.
So it's kind of like what they do with Monday Night Magic of going out afterwards to break some bread. Yeah. But that is, as Frank Sinatra says, New York City is a city that never sleeps. So there's always something open somewhere. It seems like I remember one time when I was there, and it was, I don't know, late at night, early in the morning, and somebody had said, "Hey, you want to go over to this bar? Tonight is," let me see if I got this straight, midget, lesbian, black vampire night, or something like that. It's like, what?
It's a regular night here in New York.
Just another regular night. And it's like, he said, yeah, this is the night of the month. They do this like once a month. It's like, wow, I probably should have done that. It's kind of like going to the Jim Rose Circus. I did that once too, so I probably missed my opportunity of seeing something a little bit different on the dark side of the city.
I have seen stranger things.
You have seen stranger. Well, you've been around a lot there in New York City. I remember, speaking of which, about Y2K years ago, and I was there prior to that, and you had something booked, and we were talking about. I hadn't booked anything yet for New Year's, and you were saying, well, that's the night in which, if everything goes to crap the next day and all the computers crash, you should make sure that you get a pretty good price for it, because there are a lot of parties, and make sure that you don't undercut yourself and someone calls later that would have paid more. So, start high. So I did, and so about the third time, whenever I started coming down, I finally got something, but I didn't get as much as you. But New York City has people perhaps with a little bit larger bank accounts.
Yeah, it's funny, and we played that game 2 years in a row. is Y2K, was it the year 2000 that New Year's Eve went from 99 to 2000, or is it from the year that we went from 2000 to 2001? So it was a 2-year game.
Oh, that's cool. I hadn't thought about that. Then too. So the place right now in Greenwich Village where you are performing, what is the other show that's there the other nights of the week, or does that change?
It changes all the time.
Oh, it does. So there's not like a long running like you have with the Fantastics.
So we've been at this theater now, I think it'll be 8 or 9 years, and which is sort of a major time for us, given that we've been in 9 theaters.
Right.
5 years. And our landlord is a remarkable guy. His name is Michael Skoros. And Michael is a musician and a creator of plays and musicals. So he uses the theater to feature his own shows that he writes and produces with his production partner. And then they fill in other shows in the interim. And it's the perfect place. And so we are part of the contributors for it, unless he throws us out in the next month.
But you've been there now for how long?
2000, November of 12.
Okay. So about 9 years. Yeah. I remember also years ago when I would stay with you, and a couple times I went over and stayed at Simon Lovell's place, and Simon had a show he ran. And that's another thing. It seems like in the city, you've got a lot of pocket theaters like they do in Chicago, too.
He ran a show at the Soho Playhouse, which was a theater that we had been in.
Okay.
We left under contentious circumstances, and there's good old Simon making a deal with the contentious landlord to have his own show. So guess how many times I went to see that show?
0? Yeah, okay. You didn't want to support the landlord.
I didn't want to be in the building.
Well, as I recall, now the theater he was only seated like 15 people or something.
No, it actually sat more. And I lied, actually, because I'm remembering now. I went once because his opening act was Ted Greenberg, who was a very funny comedian. And I went once to see Ted's show, and then I saw Simon's show as well. But I had seen Simon perform, 850 times.
Sure. And
it was the same show. But so it wasn't like I was being mean. But I went once. I lied. I went once.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of some acts that you've had that you really enjoyed, and some perhaps were less than stellar over the years, without naming names, are there some acts that you can talk about that you didn't like?
Oh, we never didn't like anyone.
Well, I don't mean as far as personally.
No, there were people we didn't personally as well.
Yeah. Well, there was me.
That's true.
So I've been busy.
I know.
So what have been some things that just didn't work?
For the record, I tease we like Scott.
Well, thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. For some people said, see, I told you.
I wanted to clarify. That's right.
We're close enough, buddy.
The date of when you were in, but it was a long time ago.
Yes, I remember it well. And that was, I'm going to say, shortly after 9/11. So it might have been 2002, maybe, or something.
Do you want me to check? I have the database.
No, that's all right. I don't remember. Maybe before that. Might have been in the 90s. But still, have there been some folks in which it's kind of like, you've got a certain qualification.
I don't want to forget to talk about Monday Night Magic Live online, because this has been, the last we've had the last 33 weeks we've done, or 34 weeks, we've done some incredible work online with our new show, Monday Night Magic Live Online. And it's really sort of remarkable because we can have people perform from anywhere in the world now. And so it's sort of like the pick of the litter. And because we had so much built up goodwill, there are people who'd heard about our show. Now, oh my God, I would love to do that. And I don't have to leave my house.
Yeah.
We did it online. Well, we can do it on StreamYard. And I was like, yeah. So we had a couple of weeks ago, we had Cyril from Japan, Eric Chen from China.
South Korea?
No, begins with a B in
Beijing.
Beijing, thank you very much. So we had Cyril from Japan, Eric Chen from Beijing, and David Kwong from Los Angeles. I mean, it was an unbelievable show.
Wow.
And we have Michael Carbonero coming up in 2 weeks.
And you have David Corsaro a lot of times as an MC, and you got some other people.
Yeah. David Corsaro is our host.
Uh-huh.
And there's been rumors that Todd Robbins may host, although he's hosted private events for us, but he hasn't hosted our show yet, only because some new projects going on. And we've had Ben Nemser host a couple times. And this coming Monday, we have TJ Tanna hosting. And I'd like to point out it's the soft 25th anniversary of the opening of Monday Night Magic.
And so because this broadcast will go out after that has already aired, what is the date? So people who are listening will know.
We opened on June 23rd, 1997. So we've decided that June 21st of 2021 will be our soft anniversary show. And I think we're going to do a big anniversary show in July. I think it's going to be July 19th now.
Of a Zoom show?
Yeah, well, virtual. Because
a virtual show. Or StreamYard, whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a virtual show. Gotcha.
But Zoom is like a word like Xerox now.
It has kind of like Kleenex and Xerox, exactly. It's kind of gotten into the vernacular that, like here I'm using Skype.
Magic has that too. To do a Houdini is to disappear,
That's true. That's true. And so that is something that, again, people can sign on just by going to MondayNightMagic.com. Yeah,
they can find out about it, sure, at MondayNightMagic.com. We are broadcasting on Stellar. You said the word Stellar, which made me think of Stellar. We're using the same network that other Helder used for The Present when he had 6,000 people watching. And I thought, wow, 6,000 people in one night. That's our new go-to number.
Yeah, that was amazing. Going back again to some of the shows that have been in New York that were limited run things, like Darren Brown was limited run, like Ricky Jay, like Derek Delgadio, and I think Bob White had something, or who was it?
Dan White.
Dan White.
He'll be back again. And also before that, Joseph Gabriel had a show.
I forgot about Joseph Gabriel.
Joseph on Broadway, and David Copperfield had a show, his Broadway show. And before that, Blackstone on Broadway.
Yes, and I spoke to Gay, who told me apparently they still have the unparalleled record of the longest run for a magic show on Broadway.
Oh, wait, hold on. I don't know that that's true because Doug Henning and the Magic Show ran as well, and I don't know how long that ran for, but I don't think that was a short run either.
I thought that was about 9 months or so.
Gay would know.
Yeah. But she would. That's why I was going with just what she had said with that. Well, so going back over there to your online show and people being able to get tickets, then you mentioned also that Todd does some private things. Now, what kind of private shows do they do? Are they similar to this, where you would?
We were contacted by someone who wanted to do a birthday party, and they wanted it to be worldwide. They wanted people to be able to attend from all over the world. So we did it on the StreamYard platform, and Todd hosted, and that was Todd, Eric Jones, and Aussie Wind.
So in that case, did the client ask for certain magicians, or just kind of give you the free will to choose who you wish?
She asked for Todd. She loved Todd. She had seen Todd back in the day,
right,
and wanted Todd, and asked me for my input, and I suggested Aussie and Eric, and Aussie obviously and Eric both having full Penn and Teller on Fools, and Eric having had his great success on America's
one-man show.
No, America's Got Talent. And of course, he has one-man show at Liberty Magic. Did you get to Liberty Magic to see that show?
I have seen his show before a time or two, but I haven't seen it at Liberty Magic.
And yeah, that's a venue that you should put on your.
I think, isn't that in the New Jersey area, or where is that? It's New York?
No. I'll tell you the story about Liberty Magic in a second. But I just want to point out that I was performing at the Magic Townhouse, not last March, but the March before, with Eric. We usually go as a team. Jack knows we're friends. And my last night, I got to see Eric's show in the close-up room, in the close-up gallery.
At the Magic Castle, not the Magic Townhouse.
At the
You said
Magic,
Townhouse.
sorry, at the Magic Castle.
Yeah, big difference.
Wow. East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah, Magic something or other.
Yeah. Anyway, and do I correct you when you say a blunder? No.
Well, I don't blunder.
Oh, there you go. Anyway. Folks, can you tell we've known each other for quite...
No, I think was that the...
But anyway, I wanted to say about Eric's show.
Yeah.
There wasn't a moment that my jaw didn't drop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a magician. Every moment, every effect was a wow effect. It was really one of the best magic shows I've ever seen at the Magic Castle, for sure. And if not, one of the best I've ever seen outside of the Magic Castle. Although I would say I've seen some really great ones outside the castle as well. But that was really one of my highlights.
Wasn't he doing that as part of a cruise? I was thinking there was something that he got off the ship and then he did the castle. And
so I represent Eric, and he worked on Disney cruises and put together a great show on Disney Cruise. And let me tell you about, nice segue into Liberty Magic.
Yeah.
So we get a phone call from a guy by the name of Scott Schiller, not knowing who he is. And he says, I'm opening up a venue in Pittsburgh called Liberty Magic. And I've done my research, and I'd really like Eric Jones to open our venue. And this is, mind you, a year and a half before Black Lives Matter and things of that nature. So it wasn't that sort of a thing. It's just that the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, which is the producer of Liberty Magic, is really committed to diversity. Mm-hmm. They are actually our partners on Monday Night Magic, and there's an interesting story to tell about diversity and Monday Night Magic Live Online, which, if you remember, you'll ask me, and I'll finish that story. I'll finish this thought. But in any case, so we worked with Scott, and it turns out, by the way, that Scott worked for the guy that brought Wicked to Broadway, and he was the main producer.
Wow.
Scott worked for the guy that brought Jersey Boys to Broadway. Scott worked at the Kennedy Center. He ran one of the largest performing arts centers in Florida and one of the largest performing arts centers in Colorado. And now his dream job is at the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust. They're the largest landowner in downtown Pittsburgh. They own 20 square blocks, where within those 20 square blocks, they have 30 venues. The venues range from 68 seats to 4,000. And Scott's job is responsible for filling each one of those venues with Hamilton and other great shows that they bring in. I mean, it's amazing. And producing all of this great theater. And I'm very happy to say he's become my friend. And I'm a consultant now for Liberty Magic, which, according to Eric Jones and myself as well, because I got to perform there one night, is the finest place outside of the Magic Castle. It's not better or worse. It's at par with the Magic Castle.
Right, just different.
Different.
It seems like I heard him. Didn't he talk at Magic Live a while back or some?
He did.
Okay.
Now,
as I recall, it was like something unlike the castle that books for a week at a time, or the Magic Island when we were open used to book 2 weeks at a time. It seems like that was a month at a time or something.
They wanted to book it. Originally, it was 6 weeks, but now he's listening to me and he's doing a month.
Okay.
Because 6 weeks is a long time for a performing professional, even though it's well paid and the compensation is great and all of the rest, and they pay for travel and all of the other things that they do. But imagine the parlor at the Magic Castle. Instead of vertical, it's horizontal, because the parlor seats 70, but it's 7 seats in 10 rows approximately.
Yes. Yeah.
The Liberty Magic seats 68, but it's only 4 rows. So it's horizontal. So it's 4 rows, 20 seats in each row. And they're but behind you they have screens built into the wall that are dark. You don't need them, and if you need them, they light up. There's a GoPro on top, so if you want to do McDonald's Aces on the tabletop and have everyone be able to watch it, they can all watch and see it on the screens behind them.
Right.
And they have state-of-the-art sound system, et cetera, et cetera. And when you walk in, you feel like you're walking onto the Titanic when it was brand new. And probably not a good reference, but when was the Titanic? 1930s or?
No, it was 20s. That's kind of was just before the crash in 1929. I want to say 1927 or something like that, I believe.
Got it. So it has that feel, that old style, but you're walking into it new. But they wanted to create that feeling that you're walking into a timeless place where magical things are going to happen.
Right. And another thing is the one person who works basically does a one-man show for like 90 minutes. So, I mean, you just can't come in and do an act for like 20 minutes or you got to do the whole thing.
75 to 90 minutes.
Yeah, you got to have an act.
And they'll help you. The performers that they're bringing in, they'll help curate material if need be.
Mm-hmm.
And the most remarkable part of the whole story is this was Scott's dream project because when he was a kid, he was a magician. And there's so many of those, people who grew up, so grown-ups that loved magic when they were kids, and they later on in life get to live out their dreams. Somebody told me that, well, I know for a fact that General Schwarzkopf was a magician. I heard Colin Powell loves magic. Stephen Sondheim did magic when he was a kid. He told me so personally. And there's so many of these, famous people and not famous people that love magic when they were kids. And we as magicians get to tap into that love, as what we do for a living.
Before we wrap up over here then too, can you finish that story you were talking about, diversity?
Yes, important story. Thank you. So the Friday before Martin Luther King Day, which was in January, Scott Schiller, remember, he is our partner from the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, calls and says, Michael, we have to have a black guy on the show on Monday. It's Martin Luther King Day. Mm-hmm. And it felt, first of all, the comment felt very tokenism, and it wasn't. And if you knew Scott Schiller, you would know it wasn't. But
it was not the intent. Yeah,
it was not the intent. But it was like a horror. It was horror for him. It wasn't intent. I'm anything but tokenism. My mentor was Frank Brentz.
Oh, you love the guy.
Brentz, and one of the most brilliant magicians I knew in my lifetime, who toured the world as America's Black Magician, by the way.
Right.
Anyway, and I said, it's Friday at 8:00. We have a show on Monday. The show's set. And I go, no. And he said, we have to. I said, all right, let me call Peter and we'll figure it out. And Peter came up with this great idea that we would honor Frank Brentz and we'd have Chris Capehart come on to talk about Frank.
Oh.
And Chris agreed, and we did, and it was really nice and it was wonderful, and it came off really well. And then the next day, Scott calls and says, that was great. Next month is Black History Month. Now, we were not immune to Black History Month. My business partner and one of the founding producers of Monday Night Magic was Frank Brentz. Right. And Frank used to go, we should do a show for Black History Month. And we did. And one Monday a month, we would do an all black cast, or other than the host, as best we could at Monday Night Magic. But remember, Monday Night Magic didn't have the budget to be flying people in. It was sort of like who was on the scene and who was in town, et cetera, et cetera. We would get lucky if Puck was in town in February, because he used to come up to New York in February, every February, to do a whole host of shows, and he would do the show. And we would, there were a host of others. So
I know, Ice McDonald and others, yeah.
Well, we probably had, oh God, who's the guy from Baltimore, Virginia?
Randy Shine?
No, Randy did the show too. But, I'm going to get in so much trouble. He has a very deep voice. He's the big kahuna at Tannen's Magic Camp. He's black. That's a hint. He carries the big stick, the walking stick. Everyone at
Not
home.
Chris Capehart. I don't know.
No, it's not. But Chris has done the show as well. Anyway, all these great black performers, but we only did it one night, one Monday a month. And Schiller says, "Oh no, we have to do the whole month." And I'm like, "What you talking about, Willis?" and now, you know me, and I'm not prejudiced. You know, thank God my parents brought me up the right way.
Yeah.
It wasn't a racist comment, but it was a complacent comment, meaning I didn't want to work hard for it.
Yeah.
I knew that I could easily find two artists, but and by the way, here was the funniest part. I was like, there are 5 weeks this year in February. You know, I had to get 10 performers, not 8.
Right.
And Eric Jones helped, and Chris Capehart helped, and we found new people that we never knew.
Yeah.
And Noah Sony and Lion Flood and others that we never knew, and it was a
Hiawatha.
Hiawatha, exactly right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, and it was a great month of
African American performers. Yeah, it sounds great.
Hiawatha down, because we got to call Hiawatha. Anyway, so we had a great month, and then we're in the middle of Black History Month, and Scott goes, "You know, next month is Women's History Month," and I said, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" And he said, "It really is. It's a thing, Women's History Month," and I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So now we had to go and produce, you know, and had to. It was work, but it was great. You know, there was this one night where we were on our production call with Suzanne and Billy Kidd.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter said, "I have to say that you women did not get any easy ride here. You guys really were as good, if not better, than anyone we've ever had on the show." Mm-hmm. And it was this remarkable moment to Peter and I that there's more magic than we know in our little wheelhouse. And by the way, you know, we've had 350 or 450 performers at Monday Night Magic over the last 25 years. And yet there's so many more out there.
Oh, sure.
That we don't know that are really good. And then there's all the young kids coming up today that we don't know about.
The whole generation. Right.
It is. And so there was this one moment where I was before all of this happened, where I was sort of arguing with Scott Schiller. And I was saying, "You don't know what you're asking." And because I knew that all the work was going to fall on my shoulders, that I'd have to find the people and I'd have to clear them and they'd have to be good. And, you know, we have the Monday Night Magic brand to care about. All the talent has to be really great. And the pressure, it's a lot of pressure. And he says to me, "You don't get it. You were a privileged kid." And I go, "Wait a minute. I wasn't privileged. You know, my mother was divorced when I was 3. I never remarried. She couldn't afford where we lived. So, you know, I had to get a job when I was 13, and I've worked hard since I was 13 years old. And everything I have because I earned. And I worked hard." And he goes, "You're not getting it, Michael." He said, "You were born white."
Yeah.
And
a man.
And a man. Right. Thank you. And when he took the baseball bat out of my head, I was like, wow. And it was an interesting wake-up call for Peter and I and the producers of the show to say, we're not racist, but we've been complacently racist. And it's not really the right word, but you know, there's this silent complacency where you're not giving.
As Pink Floyd would say, comfortably numb.
Yeah. And we were just talking about this, Scott and I, because it's a great little moment for the magic world and a wake-up call. And this is sort of what Liberty Magic is all about, that they really search to find people from all different backgrounds
Sure.
to perform at Liberty Magic, because there are a lot of different people that can create great magic, and they don't have to be old white guys, you know?
Good point. Good point. Before we wrap up also, Michael, of course, since you are not the only person who is a producer, you mentioned Frank Brentz earlier being one of the early producers who has since passed. Can you tell me just about some of the other people who are actually, I know you mentioned, of course, Todd Robbins and Peter Samuelson.
I'll give them to you in order. So originally, Peter Samuelson joined me. And then Peter had recommended Jamie Swiss, who you know, Jamie Ian Swiss. And then Jamie is the one who recommended Todd Robbins. And then I recommended Frank Brentz. So the original 5 producers were myself, Peter Samuelson, Jamie Swiss, Todd Robbins, and Frank Brentz.
And so that has remained constant throughout all of the years, except for Frank passing.
Except for Frank passing, yes.
Right.
Even with Jamie in California, he still adds his touch to the show. And, you know, when Peter has been traveling, Peter's always sort of phoned it in. And Todd has been a constant.
Hands-on guy.
Yeah, and someone to lean on, you know, throughout the years.
Yeah, so you're pretty much a hands-on guy who is doing all the day-to-day stuff and making sure we get butts in the seats basically each week then too, and also performing there and working as MC a lot of times.
That's correct. And Todd has been my rock, and every time I say I can't take it anymore, I want to, he talks me off the cliff. So
yeah. Well, it must be kind of difficult also that you can't get away from the standpoint you are tied down every Monday. I mean, you got other guys you can kind of lean on, but you're really, I think, there all the time, more than anybody.
That's true, except for in most recent years, I have a colleague, Will Randall, who has been amazing, and Will can actually run the show without me being on premises. And, you know, Will runs our box office. He's sort of our treasurer for the show, and he does a great job.
Great. Well, as we wrap up, and I appreciate the time that you've given us here and a lot of great stories and things as we talked about the history of not only magic in New York, but of course, Monday Night Magic. The name of my podcast is called The Magic Word, and I always like to close by asking what your philosophy of life, or what is your magic word, or not necessarily a word, it could be a phrase.
You know, I think the best philosophy is to do unto others. I've always tried to do the right thing. And it's funny because I'm old enough to know that not everybody always does the right thing, and yet I'm still surprised when people do. But I think that if you live by the golden rule, you know, do unto others as you want others to do unto you.
Yeah,
it's a good way to live. That's
very well said. Good way to wrap it up. Michael, thank you very much for being here. Thanks for being my friend, buddy. And
thank you.
Been great.
Thanks for the new T-shirt, Scott. Right there.
You bet. New York City. New York City for the Magic Word Podcast. That was Michael Chaut. This is Scotty out. Thank you, Michael. That was great. I appreciate all of the information you had given us over there, and I think that was enlightening to a lot of people who may not have known all of the background and interesting things about New York City, and particularly Monday Night Magic. Well, good luck as the future goes on. I know after 25 years, you've got another 25 in you. You look great. Look forward to seeing more of you, my friend. And there was something said, by the way, during our podcast where we were referring to Harry Blackstone's show being the longest running magic show on Broadway. I went back and did a little bit of research that, and I'm not going to refute what Gabe Blackstone had told me, and I'm going to talk with her later about some of the details of exactly what she meant. But as I looked into it, apparently when Harry Blackstone Jr. was playing at the Majestic Theater there in New York, he had 104 performances, which is a lot. That's incredible. However, Doug Henning did perform at the Court Theater there on Broadway, and that was for 1,902 episodes or shows. 1,000, almost 2,000, 1,902 shows there at the Court Theater, and so that's a little over 4.5 years. And so I would think Michael's right on that he had the longest running magic show then on Broadway there. I'm not sure where the Majestic or I have been to the Court, and it is, I don't know, I consider that Broadway. The Great White Way, I guess, is considered as being Broadway, but this was just off a little bit. Broadway and 42nd. I'm not going to get into the semantics of that. There's Broadway and off Broadway. Anyhow, so there you go. Just a little bit of statistics. Again, Majestic versus the Court Theater, and Doug Henning versus Harry Blackstone, but both great records. Well, listen, I appreciate you guys watching this episode. Please tell your friends. It'd be great if you can help spread the word, tell others about the Magic Word Podcast, and have them come and watch this channel as well. And please subscribe, as I mentioned before. If you'll just hit the subscribe button over here, just pause this for a moment, hit subscribe. That way you'll be notified whenever we have new episodes that are coming out week to week. And we're going to be having some come out very soon that are going to be day to day as I start to attend some of these conventions, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, when I'm going to give some daily updates from the conventions. And so I've got 5 different conventions between now and the end of the year where I will be attending across the country. Well, anyhow, this has been great, and I want to thank each and every one of you very much for coming and watching this week's episode. So, until next week, stay well, get booked, and remember to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This is Scotty out.